Welcome to the data standard step in for my good friend, Laura Adele from Analytics. Welcome to the show. We have a packed show today for Machine Learning Day, and we have a rock star guest, Victoria from Sama. And again, this is a guest that both Laura and I were fighting over. So Laura's show is the analytics show. Our show is the data standard. And yeah, we're fighting over tech guests. So this is a treat for us. Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Darren. I should have you come and introduce me more places everywhere that I go. It's great to be here.
Well, you know what I love about how we connected was you're in an event and then you're meeting Laura. Laura's like, come to the show. And we're all hanging out in the show. So I just love that you're constantly out there, which is interesting in this time of COVID, which is interesting in this time of isolation. So I'd love to get a sense of how did you and even Laura meet? And then the bigger thing is we'd love to hear about your journey. How did you even get into the space? So if you can talk about maybe those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually jump-started my tech career during COVID, which is a very interesting time, I think, to start anything new. But of course, we all had so much time to think about where we're going, what the next steps in our lives are. And so I started this new position working for Sama, which is an ethical AI company. I also like to add that it's female-founded, female-led. And when I started working, I work in sales development, I started attending as many events as possible. Now, normally you'd have to buy a plane ticket, pay very high ticket prices, but the luxury, if I dare say that, of starting a new position and getting out there in COVID times is that you can travel the world, so to speak, and meet people from all over from the comfort of your desk, your living room, your couch. And so that's how Laura and I met. And I've been able to meet, like I said, people from all walks of life all around the world, from the comfort of my home.
It's been an interesting journey for so many people during the last 18 months now. And I like to talk about, I can't go back. I can't go back. And it's not that I'm trying to do more meetings and go to more trade shows. I feel like I'm living my best self. And I think when I think about my journey, and I've learned a little bit about your journey, performing arts. I mean, there's been a lot at the highest level. And when you think about what you need to perform, I'm living my best self in this not the best world. I'd love to get your thoughts on, as you look back at the self-reflection, your journey. You are an athlete, and now how is your body working? Now with math.
These are all great questions. I sort of ask myself these questions every day, actually. I guess I should back up and give the listeners a little bit of a backstory here. So before I jumped into the wonderful world of data and AI and machine learning and technology, I studied at the Juilliard School. I'm actually a classically trained ballet dancer. So I studied at the Juilliard School. Was one of 12 women accepted into their dance program there. Upon graduation, a position was created for me in the Office of Public Affairs because I became so obsessed with how a place like Juilliard works. What makes it go? How do you raise the money? How is it governed? That sort of thing. And so I had worked there right after graduation. But going back to when I was a student, it was really like training to be an Olympic athlete, 12 plus hour days, wow. 6 days a week. It was a very intensive process, a lot of self-reflection. And then sort of going back even before that is like, who even gets into Juilliard? Like I auditioned almost as a joke, talk about imposter syndrome. They're like, why would somebody like me, get into Juilliard and that sort of thing. And then, fast forwarding, studied at Juilliard, danced, worked there as a full-time staff, public affairs, and now into tech. I've actually found there's a lot of transferable skills, if you will, like that performance aspect and that grit you really need, I think, to survive in certainly in tech and in the sales space that I'm in. I hope that answers the question.
There's a lot there. Grit. One of my favorite descriptors of character, grit. It is something I look for in founders. It's something I look for in people. And it is something that you don't know you have until you look back.
Or somebody tells you, you know,
Right.
somebody else was introducing me and they're like, oh, you know, this is Victoria. She's girl. I was like, grit, me?
Yeah.
I don't, never heard that, you know, used to describe
Right. That is such the right term. Like that just means you've got, you know, it's like Mike Tyson always says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right. And that's kind of grit. It's like, we're just going to take it, get up the next day. And then, you know, I think you said you're in New York, right?
Born and
So
bred.
now, yeah. So for me, I was in San Francisco and I did the San Francisco to Florida exodus. Not getting into politics, just the isolation. I did the move. Did you ever think about during this time going to a different city? What city? Why didn't you? Like, there was a lot going on in the world. Some people stayed, some people didn't. Where did you sit?
I stayed in New York. I was one of those people who didn't leave, and like I said, I'm a native New Yorker, and I knew my city would come back from the get-go, and things are now, you know, they're coming back around. The art scene, although I'm not working or certainly performing anymore, is coming back. You know, they just announced that Hamilton will be back on Broadway in September, so it's sort of like nature is healing.
Great.
Nature is healing. Yeah, and I kind of stuck to what I thought was right, and what felt right to me was staying in New York. And this opportunity, you know, I think a lot of companies actually realized that they, you know, the talent pool is actually greater when they open up, you know, to remote work, when they're not just geographically dedicated to one area. And so that's how I landed the job at Sama.
I mean, for me, my happy place has some palm tree in it. So I was like, that's my happy place. And what I like about the mission of Sama is there's a lot there. The ethics, the AI, female led, it checks so many incredible boxes. When you interviewed and went through that experience, right? So as an outsider, I love everything I hear about it. What was it like going through the interview process? How did they treat you? Walk us through like the real culture, not the stuff that I read about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am going to be very truthful with you. What you see is what you get with Sama. And
Wonderful.
I think that's really, really what drew me to the company. I mean, it almost seemed like it was too good to be true on paper. Like, incredible founder, incredible mission. I mean, in a time where, you know, tech and big tech is really under a microscope, where are we getting our data? Thinking about privacy, thinking about trust, who's handling your data. It seemed utopian in some ways. And of course, you know, every company has ups and downs and pros and cons, but really during the interview process, everybody spoke so highly of the mission as truly a mission-driven company. So I guess I'll just give a clip of what we're about, just a brief overview. So Sama, we provide high-quality training data. So that means we are labeling data for computer vision and machine learning projects. I currently work on the autonomous vehicle and robotics team. So I'll just, you know, explain it in a very simple way. How does a car know what a tree looks like? How does the car know what a basketball looks like? How does a car know what a child looks like? So what we do at Sama is we ingest all of this data, video, image, sensor data. We label that data to very high qualities, of course, and then we give it back to our clients. And one of the parts that makes us ethical, I'll say, is that data labeling process. So what you'll see in a lot of companies that outsource this data is that it's often crowdsourced. So as you can imagine, this work is very tedious. If you can imagine, you know, labeling all of the cars on the road, or labeling all of the houses or faces or bodies and people, it's very tedious work. And a lot of times companies can get away with paying little to nothing to these folks who are doing this work. In addition to that, there's more of a crowdsourced model. So, you could be sitting in your parents' house in your basement, in rural Oklahoma and log on, and there's an opportunity to do that. But at Sama, we have full-time employees, over 3,000, that are actually based in Eastern Africa, who are paid living wages, are full-time employees, benefits, career development, insurance, and they are the folks that are handling labeling. So there's that's one of the ways that we're ethical and mindful.
Oh, that's there's a lot there. And what we were talking about as we started the show was Machine Learning Day, and we are airing this on Machine Learning Day. And what's so interesting about the day is I kind of challenge a lot of people, because we want to own a day on the national calendar. We want to be right up there where it's a different color when you get your calendar. And when I think about Machine Learning Day, I want to celebrate some of the wins. So if we think about things that you're talking about, just the delightfulness of Google Maps. So maybe on Machine Learning Day, you use Apple Maps versus Google Maps just to appreciate the two different types of data. Or if you're using Apple, use Google because they're as delightful. Or just take a moment to just appreciate when your email auto completes a sentence. Mm-hmm. These are the things that we are talking about today with Victoria, in the sense that there's trading sets. So as far as a car, right? If I had to celebrate a win on a car, a low-level win on a car, what automation, on the lowest thing that we can be delighted on, based on what you're seeing, what should we challenge us to take a moment and say, I'm just grateful?
Yeah, well, one of the most heartwarming use cases that I've seen, and I think it was through Via, the ride sharing company. They ran a pilot, and they set up these robo-taxis in sort of like a nursing home setting or a community where there was
I love where this is going. I didn't hear the story. Keep going.
And so what that sort of showed was sort of like the good of autonomous vehicles, where you can have these older folks who can be independent and go to the grocery store or go to the movies. And so they could just hop into this autonomous vehicle, get around town, and get back home safely. And so that's a heartwarming story for me. Another quick one that I'll just go through is Sama. We're actually working on a project with Google called Project Guideline, where we're actually helping those who are visually impaired see using computer vision, using an app on their phone. And there's this really inspiring story. There's a gentleman who is not able to, who's a marathon runner, who is not able to run unassisted for many years due to his, of course, visual impairment, and due to some technologies we're developing with Google based on his phone, using computer vision to see the line in the road in front of him. He is now able, that technology will be, available widespread, I believe. He is now able to run and quote unquote see and sense the road independently.
Well, we want to celebrate there. I mean, what I don't want the day to turn into is, yes, we know that the data is messy. Yes, we know the data is not complete. Yeah, I mean, we can always throw the list of things, but I don't know, maybe because it's COVID, isn't it just nice to celebrate something?
I think we all get bogged down in you turn on the news, everything's negative. I think it's so easy to just slope in that direction, but I think certainly to just stay afloat in these times, to celebrate the wins, the little wins here and there.
Yeah, and so for me, I think for me on Machine Learning Day, I think I'm going to have Spotify just pick my music. I'm going to see if I can just try to let the machine run my day.
Yes.
Just go to a new restaurant, let Yelp pick the food, it'll just, whatever comes up, then I'll just have Google Maps just take me there.
Yeah, I feel like you can get GTP3 involved, just hand it some data and see what it comes back with. I was messing around the other night. It's wild,
I'm in. I am in. So now you're in a cool town, right? New York City. The city you wanted to stay in, and now the weather's getting nice. Office, customer meetings. what are you seeing in a big city? Are people saying, come into my office, meet me for coffee, or just, let's stay on Zoom? Like, what's the pulse that you're seeing, at least in New York?
In New York, I don't think so many people are returning to the office. It's kind of like at everyone's own level of comfort. I think there are some large co-working spaces that are opening up again, and certainly with the weather being nice,
Yeah,
nothing's better than like, hey, let's grab a coffee on a bench in Central Park, which is, in my
sign me up.
backyard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sign me up.
So I think there's a lot of that going on. I think there's still some hesitance, not
Mhm.
even, in the realm of COVID, but people realize that they could be productive, from home, that a cubicle is not required. And then certainly there's a lot more flexibility when it comes to, I don't have a family of my own yet, but with parents, having that flexibility, I think there's definitely a pull to stay remote or at least have a hybrid model.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling the same thing. Like, for me, if somebody wants to meet me for coffee, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. Like, can we just do a call?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I think if someone's like, listen, I'm getting 5 people together,
Hmm.
and you should meet these 5, I think I'm going to take that meeting.
Hmm.
But you're right. It's I don't know. And I just want to say, can I wear shorts to that meeting? Like, I don't what's the
I feel like
rules?
all of that has gone out the window. It's just shorts, like whatever,
What's the
it all
rules?
flies. Well, the other
Like,
thing
what?
too about meeting is that since I started this position remotely, I've never met any of my colleagues in person.
Right.
And so I totally agree with you. So the one person that I would meet for coffee is probably, the account executive that I've been,
Right.
going back and forth with for months. That I'm like,
Right.
maybe from a distance, you can
Yeah.
be on that park bench. I could be on this one.
No, it's funny. We talk about that in a lot of our calls, podcasts as well, of what's nice about this type of remote work. And I'm hearing you having that also at Sama, again, a great company, absolutely great leadership, great vision, is that everyone right now is remote. We all log in to the call at the same time, and we all have the same call experience, right? We all are catching the joke from the start versus what did I miss? And I think it's pretty nice. So now, what we want to do at the end of each show is maybe just share maybe some advice.
Mhm.
So you're a woman in tech, you're working at this hot company,
Mhm.
doing some pretty innovative stuff with a non-traditional path.
Mhm.
So for the listeners who have daughters, for the listeners who have sons graduating, going through maybe an arts program,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to the parents or maybe the younger students listening?
Yeah, one thing that I kind of think of is that, my journey starting at Juilliard as a classical ballet dancer to now working at this, AI ML company is really, life is this crazy, wild ride, and you really have to keep your mind open to everything. You kind of have to say yes, and know that you have a very unique story that nobody else has. And that's an advantage. There were times where I was like, shoot, am I qualified? But then I realized the skill set that I had from other positions that seems, what is more different from a career in artificial intelligence than a ballet dancer? On paper, that seems so different. But really along the way, we discussed grit a little bit, that dedication,
Yeah.
that level of intensity that you certainly need to work in this industry. So, keep your mind open to everything. Don't say no, and just really think creatively, because you never know where that's going to get you.
Gold. There is a lot there. And I think that, when you are in, not you, but when people are in school, and I've always kind of thought this way about school, and maybe now through COVID, you have a lot of time to think. It's that every May and every January, hundreds of thousands of people enter the workforce and fight for the job. So it is lonely. It is tough. You don't sometimes get your number one choice.
Mhm.
But I love what you said of you have to say yes. Be open. It's the job is not forever. Don't stay too long.
Mhm.
Chase good bosses.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, especially about being a woman in the workforce, there's this insane statistic where it's like if let's say the job requirement, there are 6 requirements or qualifications. A woman will only apply, to that position if she meets 5 of them. But a man will apply. This is like a true statistic. I'm paraphrasing here. If he has about 2, so to me that says to all of the women entering the workforce or anybody who feels like they're not qualified, what's the worst they're going to say? No, or they don't get back to you. So what? You move on.
Well said. Yep. Well said. And what I've been saying to people I've been mentoring is graduate early. This is not the school. This is not what you signed up for. We didn't sign up for Zoom education, and it's awful. But the process is still the same. If you want to be an intern or a full employee, you still have like 6 interviews. So you might as well just, to your point, send out internship requests and send out like entry level. The process is the same. Cool having you on the show. And we are going to get you on Laura's show as well. So this will be good to spend a little bit more time with you. So I want to thank you. And more importantly, what an incredible company, Sama. Love what they're working on, incredible brands. And what I'm excited about is I'm going to be around, God willing, to enjoy the fruits of Sama's labor of driving without driving. So to me, like, I can't wait for what you're working on and Sama working on to hit my world, which is going to be freaking awesome. Can't wait.
We can't wait either.
Awesome. Sign me up. Hey, so one last question for you. If Victoria, if you can maybe just shout out how to get in touch with Sama. What's the website? How do they find you? Like, where should they go?
Yeah, so you can find us on all social media. We are Sama AI on Twitter. We're on LinkedIn at Sama. You can find us there. And also, sama.com, the good old URL. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm sure my link will be in the bio, Victoria Grempel. And I look forward to chatting with you all.
We're happy to have you on the show, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.